Welcome to Jason Sports. I'm your host, Joe Chapper. We're talking about the Michigan Wolverines because they got Bryce Underwood. And I feel like a lot of people are putting a lot of pressure on Bryce to perform. And you know what? Look, Bryce Underwood's a great player. There's zero doubt about it. He's one of he was one of the best recruits in the country. And when you talk about being the best recruiter of the country, you talk about expectations, lofty expectations. Well, the issue with this is I feel like, especially in the NIL era, I feel like in the NIL era, these guys are asked to perform at an absorbent amount. It's a little bit overzealous, especially when you talk about college football. These kids coming into college football that are freshmen, that are looking to get paid. You know, there was a couple like Jackson Arnold last year at Oklahoma. He wasn't that great. There was multiple other occasions where there was a high recruit that got asked to start very early and wasn't as good. Even the kid at Clemson, I forget the kid, Klubnik, he was asked to start early. He was pegged to be the next Trevor Lawrence, wasn't the next Trevor Lawrence. And a lot of times, what happens is these college teams insert a young quarterback into a situation that is not for a young quarterback. Now, I fully believe that Bryce Underwood will have pieces to work with. I think that that's one of the things that helped JJ McCarthy be a first round draft pick. When you talk about Colston Loveland, you talk about the two running backs that he had, you talk about the offensive line he had, and the kids that went all the offensive linemen that went to the NFL. Underwood's going to need that, and he's going to need some time to develop. And it doesn't mean that he's going to be trash to start out with, but as we look at college football in conjunction, ever since the recruiting rankings have ever came out, this is what you deal with. So 24/7 is usually a good barometer for college football. This is the facts on five-star quarterbacks. So total five-star quarterbacks from 2000 to 2020, because we kind of had to cap it off because there's some kids still playing that are from 2021, 2022, 2023, and so forth. But become college stars, which is a Heisman finalist, All-American, elite production, only 40% of the time. Had modest or disappointing college careers, that's 40% of the time. Transferred, benched, or fizzled out, I'm surprised it's as low, 20% of the time. And then you go to, is this guy going to be a guy that I can count on to be an NFL draft pick? Is he a guy that I could count on to be a guy who could potentially go to the league as a first round draft pick or just in the draft in general? The stats are not on your side if you're a five-star quarterback. Actually, they are very against it. In the NFL, only 39.5 of the five-star QBs are drafted in the NFL. That's less than 40%. And it's less than 20% they'll be drafted in the first round. You know, you got guys like Stafford and Trevor Lawrence, and you got guys like, you got guys that weren't five-star quarterbacks like Mahomes and Allen and Lamar, and you got these guys that are such great quarterbacks at the NFL level, but they weren't highly recruited or highly regarded coming out of high school. The same thing for Bryce Underwood. And a lot of people are going to be like, "What do you mean he got paid all that money by NIL?" He's going to need a period where he's going to have to get, used to college football. It's a lot harder to go from high school football to college football. It's equally as hard to go from college football to the NFL. And that's kind of the transition that you have to go through as a quarterback. The spots that you thought you could throw in high school, you could throw in there and you get it because you are the most talented player on the field. If you threw at that spot in college, it could get picked off. You throw it at that spot in the NFL, it's definitely getting picked off. That's the little things as a quarterback develops that they have to get done. And obviously, when you look at the statistics, 40% of them are elite guys like Trevor Lawrence, like Caleb Williams was elite at USC. Quinn Ewers, who transferred, he was pretty good. He had elite production at Texas, but Arch Manning is going to be the next guy. And then you look at how they look in the NFL, and it's less than 40% to get drafted into the NFL, and it's less than 17% to get drafted in the first round. So all I'm saying is it's going to be a translation period for Bryce Underwood. I feel like a lot of people are putting too much pressure on the kid. He's played very, very well, and he's gonna, he's especially in high school. I love the kid. I think he's gonna be an extremely talented quarterback. But there's gonna be there's gonna be a period where in the year where he doesn't look as hot, and that's just the way these quarterbacks develop. And my fear about the NIL era is that you have a quarterback like Bryce Underwood, who's very talented, who is very, very good, and you don't develop him the right way because let's say you're trying to get the most out of him. My fear about the NIL isn't uh the players getting paid. It's the players trying to live up to what they're getting paid. If you're getting paid $16 million, if you're getting paid $4 million as a college athlete, you're going to push the envelope. Are you going to have the best, traits? Are you going to have the best decision making skills? Probably not. So that's what I worry about with a guy like Bryce Underwood. And look, under no circumstances am I saying Bryce Underwood is not going to be a good player because he's going to be a phenomenal player. I feel like a lot of people, especially in the recruiting community, are just hyping this guy up. And I feel like they do this with every highly recruited quarterback. How many times have we seen a guy like a busted out quarterback that doesn't do well? And then we see a guy like Marcus Mariota, or we see a guy like Justin Herbert, or we see a guy like, you know, uh, it's very far and few between that we see a guy. The statistics bear it out. It's very few and far in between that we get a guy like Bryce Young. We get a guy like Trevor Lawrence. We get a guy like uh, y- you know, the top level guys. We usually don't see those guys pan out as well. And it's not because of them, it's because of the players and the coaches and the systems that they've been put into. Now, I have full confidence in Bryce Underwood at Michigan. I think he's going to do a damn good job. And I think that this is the right situation for him regarding their circumstances don't change. But at this point in time, it's a pro system. I think it'll be very, very beneficial for Bryce Young in the long term. But I think in the short term, a lot of Michigan fans need to have an open mind to what could happen during the college football season. And that's what I think is going to be a big staple going forward. So we'll talk more Michigan football all throughout the summer. We got all summer to talk about Michigan football, but I felt like this was a big talking point that I really wanted to get to before everyone else, piles on the Bryce hype. And this is something that needs to be said because when you talk about college, you talk about these kids sometimes don't live up to the expectations or they take a little time to develop. And it's not something that, you know, I'm saying he's not going to develop quickly or he's not going to be, he might be Trevor Lawrence. He might be Trevor Lawrence. He might not be Trevor Lawrence. He might take some time to get acclimated to the college football, system. And it might take, especially with Oklahoma on the schedule, they could be a very underrated team. And look, there's going to be plenty of chances for Bryce Underwood to make his moments, but I think he just needs to kind of take it slow. And then as the season goes on, gets better. We saw that with Dwayne Haskins at Ohio State. We've seen that from multiple other quarterbacks throughout college football, where it's a little bit of a slow play at the first couple weeks, and then it goes on and gets better as the season goes on. So that's what Bryce Underwood needs to really focus on, kind of like the Bryce Young method, where Bryce Young wasn't the best when he started, but he got a whole hell of a lot better by the end of the year, and then he turned himself into a Heisman candidate. That's what I like. I want to see from Bryce Underwood. I think Underwood's going to be a hell of a player. I think he's a very, very talented player. I watched him at Belleville, and he's going to be a guy that is going to be a force to be reckoned with. But he needs the time, and the fans need to give him the time. And if they do that, Michigan will be in a really good situation with their quarterback situation. I'm Joe Chap at Jason Sports. I'll see you in the next videos. We talk more Michigan football, Michigan basketball, Michigan hockey. We'll be having it all. We'll be more consistent on the Jason Sports YouTube page. So thank you for subscribing. Subscribe, like, comment if you disagree with me. We can have the conversation. And I'll see you in the next video as we talk more Michigan athletics.